Who is it?
Russians in Komi.
Where is it?
It is in Russia, in the north of the Komi Republic, near the polar circle, in the village of Ust-Tsilma, on the banks of the Pechora river. Here and in other villages along the Pechora, on the banks of the rivers Pizhma, Tsilma and Nerista, live Russian Old Believers, Pomors. People from the Veliki Novgorod lands came here in the early 1540s. In the 16th and 17th centuries, the Pechora region was a place where was extracted copper and silver. From there were also brought to Moscow poultry, fish and furs. At the beginning of the 18th century, Old Believers reached the Pechora region due to the persecution that followed the split in the Russian Orthodox Church during the time of Tsar Alexei Mikhailovich and the Patriarch Nikon. Ust-Tsilma was not chosen just like that. The location was difficult to reach. The descendants of those Old Believers are the inhabitants of the regional center Ust-Tsilma and surrounding villages. But Old Believers from the area of the Pizhma River are the more famous. In early July, I arrived to Ust-Tsilma, from where I went to the village of Skitskaya, located just on the river Pizhma. We got there through 5 small river crossings. People say there are no roads in Russia, but after all, people moved in the past mostly through waterways, and roads were not so needed. Impenetrable forests are all around, and the beautiful villages are not easy to reach. You can meet there the flavor of the Russian soul, and sometimes you can also meet bears on the only main road. In the 18th century, there were several hermitages in the region. At the place of the village of Skitskaya, there was the Veliki Pozhensky monastery, which was considered as the main spiritual center of the Old Believers of this region. In 1743 here took place a tragic event. Having heard that a detachment from Arkhangelsk was approaching in order to convert the Old Believers to the new official orthodoxy, 70 Old Believers, inhabitants of the monastery, committed self-immolation. All the residents of Skitska tell the story of that tragedy as if it happened yesterday. They preserve their traditional culture and remember the fate of their ancestor, the charter and mystery of the old church. At the cemetery, there is a memorial cross, and in the place of the former monastery is a chapel. The most amazing thing is that the inhabitants of this region managed to save a lot from the old Russian culture. People lived quite closed, far from the world, according to strict ancient customs and canons, with their books and icons. And this spirit is largely preserved up to this day. You can still see women on the streets or in their gardens wearing traditional clothes. In Ust-Tsilma, at the end of the Holy Peter's fast, from July 11th to 12th, during the White Nights, there is a holiday called Petrovchina, from the name of Holy Peter. This is a collective meal. Local residents burn fire on the banks of the river with their families, boil fish soup called ukha, and special porridge called kasha. They sing old Russian songs and walk until the morning.
Традиция эта, видать, завелась, обычай этот уже издавна. Как бы и день рыбака тут как бы почиталось, и именно почему, может, и почитались Петр и Павел, они также были рыбаками, как бы чтобы удачно ловилась рыба.
But Petrovchina is not just for fun. It is a kind of memorial rite during which people remember their ancestor. It is believed that on this night the boundaries between the living world and the afterlife world are erased, thanks to Holy Peter. Today is Gorka in Ust-Tsilma. Gorka is a real traditional Russian holiday with an amazing dance parade called Khorovod in the center of the village. I got the most incredible emotions on this very day. Gorka happens several times a year, but the most important are in spring and early summer. Gorka is an echo of the ancient Khorovod and is tied to the church and folk agricultural calendar. For centuries, Khorovods have been an opportunity for young people to meet and get to know each other. This event takes place during a short stop between the cycle of seasonal works, before heading out to haymaking and fishing again. In Russia, I very rarely saw so many girls and women dressed up in their own beautiful folk costumes. Moreover, they store outfit in family trunks, which are passed from generation to generation.
На мне сейчас костюм прабабушки, получается. Это ее костюм, который оставила ему очень много лет.
They dress up in the most expensive brocade and silk dresses, among which you can see wrap shawls and elegant sundresses of the 19th century. And residents do it for themselves, not for the tourist. So 100 and maybe 200 years ago, they drove the Gorka horovod. But even today in Ust-Tsilma, despite the fact that there are discotheques and social networks, Russian youth, with pleasure and pride, still goes to the traditional Gorka and continues the way of living and believing of their ancestors. This is the very feature of the Russian soul in this region, in the north of Komi. People are Russians, but different from the Russians in other parts of Russia. See you at the next program, and don't forget to subscribe and press the bell.